Buddhism, one of the world's major religions, traces its origins to ancient India, over 2 millennia ago. It began with the life and teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, later known as the Buddha, whose quest for enlightenment has influenced millions. Understanding the genesis of Buddhism involves exploring its historical, cultural, and spiritual contexts, revealing how a profound personal journey transformed into a global spiritual movement. This book aims to uncover the roots of Buddhism, examining the early life of the Buddha, the spread of his teachings, and the development of the diverse traditions that form the rich tapestry of Buddhism today. The life of Siddhartha Gautama. Siddhartha Gautama, the founder of Buddhism, was born into a life of privilege and comfort in the 6th century BCE in the region that is now Nepal. He was born into the Shakya clan, a warrior tribe, in the city of Kapilavastu. His father, King Suddhodana, ruled the Shakya clan and ensured that Siddhartha was raised in an environment of affluence, shielded from the hardships and sufferings of the outside world. His mother, Queen Maya, tragically passed away shortly after his birth, and he was subsequently raised by his aunt, Mahaprajapati. From an early age, Siddhartha was immersed in the luxuries of palace life. His father, wishing to prevent him from experiencing the harsh realities of life, surrounded him with every conceivable pleasure and comfort. As a young prince, Siddhartha was provided with the finest clothes, the most exquisite foods, and the best education. He excelled in various arts and sciences, including archery, swordsmanship, and philosophy, preparing him for a future role as a ruler. Despite his father's efforts to keep him insulated, Siddhartha was naturally curious about the world beyond the palace walls. This curiosity only grew stronger as he matured. At the age of 16, he married Yasodhara, a beautiful and noble princess, with whom he had a son named Rahula. Despite the happiness of his family life, Siddhartha felt a deep sense of restlessness and discontent. One day, driven by an urge to explore, Siddhartha ventured outside the palace grounds. Accompanied by his charioteer, Channa, he encountered what are known as the 4 sights, which profoundly altered his understanding of life. The first sight was that of an old man, frail and bent with age. The second sight was of a sick man, writhing in pain and suffering from disease. The third sight was a corpse, lifeless and still, being prepared for cremation. The final sight was of a wandering ascetic, a monk who had renounced worldly pleasures in search of spiritual enlightenment. These encounters deeply troubled Siddhartha, as they revealed to him the universal realities of aging, sickness, and death. He realized that no one, not even a prince, could escape these inevitable aspects of human existence. The sight of the ascetic, however, offered him a glimmer of hope. It suggested that there might be a way to transcend suffering and attain a higher state of being. Driven by a profound sense of urgency and a desire to understand the nature of suffering, Siddhartha made a momentous decision. At the age of 29, he renounced his princely life, leaving behind his family, wealth, and the throne that awaited him. This act of renunciation, known as the Great Departure, marked the beginning of his journey as a spiritual seeker. Siddhartha's quest for enlightenment led him to study under various religious teachers of his time. He first sought guidance from Alara Kalama, a renowned ascetic who taught him the practices of meditation and self-discipline. Siddhartha quickly mastered these teachings, but found that they did not lead to the ultimate liberation he sought. He then turned to Uddaka Ramaputta, another esteemed teacher, and attained high levels of meditative concentration. But again, this did not bring him the insight he desired. Determined to find the truth on his own, Siddhartha embarked on a path of severe asceticism, believing that extreme self-denial and physical austerity would lead to enlightenment. For 6 years, he subjected himself to rigorous practices, including prolonged fasting and breath control. His body became emaciated, and he teetered on the brink of death. Despite his intense efforts, he realized that these extreme measures were not bringing him any closer to his goal. At this critical juncture, Siddhartha decided to abandon the path of extreme asceticism. He accepted a bowl of rice milk from a young village girl named Sujata, recognizing that physical health and strength were essential for his spiritual quest. This act of nourishment led to a profound realization: the middle way. The middle way is a path of moderation, avoiding the extremes of self-indulgence and self-mortification. It became the foundation of his teaching and practice. Restored in body and spirit, Siddhartha made his way to the town of Bodh Gaya, where he sat beneath a large fig tree, later known as the Bodhi tree, and resolved not to rise until he had attained enlightenment. He entered deep meditation, confronting the inner demons of temptation, fear, and doubt. According to Buddhist tradition, he was visited by Mara, the embodiment of desire and death, who tried to divert him from his path with various temptations and threats. Siddhartha remained steadfast, ultimately achieving a profound state of awakening. In the early hours of the morning, as the planet Venus rose in the sky, Siddhartha Gautama attained enlightenment. He became the Buddha, the awakened one, having realized the true nature of existence and the path to liberate oneself from suffering. He understood the Four Noble Truths: the truth of suffering, dukkha; the truth of the cause of suffering, samudaya; the truth of the end of suffering, nirodha; and the truth of the path leading to the end of suffering, magga. The Buddha spent the rest of his life traveling and teaching, sharing the wisdom he had gained with all who would listen. His first sermon, delivered at Deer Park in Sarnath to his 5 former ascetic companions, laid out the core principles of his teachings, including the middle way and the Eightfold Path. This moment marked the beginning of the Buddhist community, the Sangha, which grew rapidly as more people were drawn to his message of compassion, wisdom, and liberation. Siddhartha Gautama's life and teachings have had a profound impact on countless individuals and cultures over the centuries. His journey from prince to enlightened teacher continues to inspire those who seek to understand the nature of suffering and the path to true happiness. The story of his life is not just a historical account, but a timeless narrative of spiritual awakening and the pursuit of inner peace. The first sermon and the formation of the Sangha. After attaining enlightenment under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, Siddhartha Gautama, now the Buddha, faced a pivotal moment. Having discovered the profound truth of existence and the path to liberation from suffering, he was initially hesitant about sharing his insights. The realization he had achieved was deep and subtle, and he doubted whether anyone else could grasp it. However, driven by compassion for all sentient beings, the Buddha decided to teach what he had learned. His goal was to help others attain the same liberation he had experienced. The Buddha's journey to share his teachings began with the search for his former companions, the 5 ascetics with whom he had practiced severe austerities. He believed that these ascetics, now residing in the Deer Park at Sarnath near Varanasi, would be receptive to his message. Upon finding them, the Buddha was initially met with skepticism. The ascetics, seeing him well-nourished and no longer emaciated, thought he had abandoned the path of enlightenment. However, the Buddha's serene and radiant demeanor soon convinced them to listen to what he had to say. In the Deer Park, the Buddha delivered his first sermon, known as the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, which translates to setting in motion the wheel of Dharma. This sermon marked the beginning of his public teaching career and laid the foundation for his spiritual community. In this seminal discourse, the Buddha introduced the core principles of his teaching, starting with the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths form the essence of the Buddha's enlightenment and his diagnosis of the human condition. The first truth, the truth of suffering, dukkha, acknowledges the pervasive nature of suffering in life. It encompasses not only physical pain and mental anguish, but also the inherent dissatisfaction that accompanies all forms of existence. The Buddha illustrated this with examples of birth, aging, sickness, and death, as well as the frustration of unfulfilled desires and the fleeting nature of pleasure. The second truth, the truth of the cause of suffering, samudaya, identifies desire and attachment as the root causes of suffering. It is our cravings for sensory pleasures, existence and non-existence that bind us to the cycle of birth and death, known as samsara. This craving leads to actions driven by ignorance and greed, perpetuating the cycle of suffering. The third truth, the truth of the end of suffering, nirodha, offers hope and liberation. It asserts that the cessation of suffering is possible by eliminating its cause. By relinquishing attachment and desire, one can attain nirvana, a state of perfect peace and freedom from the cycle of rebirth. The fourth truth, the truth of the path leading to the end of suffering, magga, outlines the practical steps to achieve this liberation. This path is known as the Noble Eightfold Path, a comprehensive guide to ethical and mental development. It consists of 8 interconnected practices: right understanding, right intent, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Together, these practices cultivate wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline, leading to the cessation of suffering. The Buddha's first sermon also emphasized the middle way, a path of moderation that avoids the extremes of self-indulgence and self-mortification. This balanced approach to spiritual practice was a significant departure from the ascetic practices common in his time and resonated deeply with his 5 former companions. By following the middle way and the Noble Eightfold Path, individuals could achieve enlightenment and liberation from suffering. The impact of the Buddha's first sermon was profound and immediate. Kondana, one of the 5 ascetics, fully grasped the Buddha's teaching and attained the first stage of enlightenment, becoming the first arahant, or worthy one, free from the fetters of delusion and craving. This marked the beginning of the Buddhist community, or Sangha, as Kondana requested to become a disciple of the Buddha. The other 4 ascetics soon followed, each attaining enlightenment and joining the Sangha. As the Sangha grew, the Buddha continued to travel and teach, attracting a diverse group of followers from all walks of life. His teachings appealed to people from various social backgrounds, including princes, merchants, and ordinary villagers. The Buddha's message of liberation was universal, transcending caste and social status, which was revolutionary in the rigidly stratified society of ancient India. One of the Buddha's notable early converts was Yasa, the son of a wealthy merchant. Disillusioned with the empty pleasures of a luxurious life, Yasa found solace in the Buddha's teachings and became a monk. Inspired by Yasa's transformation, his family and friends also embraced the Dharma, contributing to the Sangha's expansion. The Buddha's ability to connect with individuals from different backgrounds highlighted the inclusiveness of his teachings. The Sangha's growth necessitated the establishment of rules and guidelines to maintain harmony and discipline within the monastic community. The Buddha instituted the Vinaya, a set of ethical and procedural rules governing the conduct of monks and nuns. The Vinaya addressed various aspects of monastic life, including interactions with lay people, communal living, and the resolution of disputes. These rules ensured the integrity and cohesion of the Sangha, allowing it to function as a harmonious and supportive community dedicated to spiritual practice. The relationship between the Sangha and the lay community was symbiotic and essential for the flourishing of Buddhism. Lay people provided material support, such as food, clothing, and shelter, enabling monks and nuns to focus on their spiritual pursuits. In return, the monastics offered teachings, guidance, and inspiration to the lay community, fostering a mutually beneficial exchange. This interdependence helped Buddhism establish a strong presence in society and facilitated its spread across regions. As the Buddha's reputation as a teacher and spiritual guide grew, he encountered various challenges and opposition from rival religious groups and skeptical individuals. However, his unwavering compassion, wisdom, and ability to respond skillfully to criticism won him many admirers and followers. One of his significant debates was with the Brahmin teacher, Sakaka, who questioned the validity of the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha's calm and reasoned responses demonstrated the depth of his understanding and further solidified his authority as a spiritual leader. Throughout his teaching career, the Buddha emphasized the importance of direct experience and personal verification of his teachings. He encouraged his disciples to question, investigate, and test the Dharma through their own practice, rather than accepting it on blind faith. This empirical approach to spiritual practice resonated with many and contributed to the enduring appeal of Buddhism. The Buddha's teachings continued to evolve and adapt as he encountered new disciples and contexts. He addressed the specific needs and capacities of individuals, offering tailored guidance to help them progress on the path to enlightenment. This flexibility and responsiveness were key factors in the widespread acceptance and enduring relevance of his teachings. The Buddha's ability to convey profound philosophical insights in simple and practical terms made his teachings accessible to a broad audience. He often used parables, analogies, and stories to illustrate complex concepts, making them relatable and easy to understand. For instance, the parable of the raft, in which the Buddha compares his teachings to a raft used to cross a river and then left behind, highlighted the pragmatic and non-dogmatic nature of the Dharma. Over the course of his 45-year teaching career, the Buddha traveled extensively across the Indian subcontinent, spreading his message of compassion, wisdom, and liberation. He established numerous monasteries and teaching centers, providing a stable foundation for the continued growth and dissemination of Buddhism. Among the most famous of these monasteries was Jetavana, donated by the wealthy merchant Anathapindika, which became a significant center for Buddhist learning and practice. The formation of the Sangha and the establishment of the Dharma set in motion a spiritual movement that would transcend time and geography. The Buddha's teachings, preserved through the Sangha and passed down through generations, continue to inspire and guide millions of people worldwide. The principles he laid out in his first sermon remain central to Buddhist practice and philosophy, offering a timeless path to inner peace and enlightenment. The spread of Buddhism in India. The dissemination of Buddhism within India is a remarkable tale of growth and transformation, influenced by various socio-political and cultural factors. Following the Buddha's death, or parinirvana, around 483 BCE, his teachings were preserved and propagated by his disciples. These early followers played a crucial role in establishing the foundational texts and practices of Buddhism, ensuring that the Dharma, or teachings, remained intact and accessible to future generations. Initially, the spread of Buddhism was relatively slow, confined primarily to the regions where the Buddha had taught during his lifetime. The early Buddhist community faced numerous challenges, including competition from established religious traditions, such as Hinduism and Jainism. However, the inherent appeal of the Buddha's message, emphasizing compassion, wisdom, and the possibility of liberation for all beings, gradually attracted a growing number of adherents. One of the most significant factors contributing to the expansion of Buddhism in India was the support and patronage of influential rulers. Among these, Emperor Ashoka of the Maurya dynasty stands out as a pivotal figure. Ashoka, who reigned from approximately 268 to 232 BCE, was initially known for his military conquests and harsh rule. However, after witnessing the devastating aftermath of the Kalinga War, he experienced a profound change of heart. Deeply moved by the suffering he had caused, Ashoka embraced Buddhism and dedicated himself to the propagation of the Dharma. Ashoka's conversion to Buddhism marked a turning point in the history of the religion. As a powerful and influential ruler, his support provided Buddhism with the resources and legitimacy needed for its widespread dissemination. Ashoka's commitment to the teachings of the Buddha was evident in his efforts to promote ethical governance and social welfare. He issued edicts inscribed on pillars and rocks throughout his empire, advocating for moral conduct, nonviolence, and religious tolerance. These edicts, written in various languages, serve not only as a means of communicating his policies, but also as a tool for spreading Buddhist principles. Under Ashoka's patronage, Buddhism flourished and expanded beyond its initial confines. He sponsored the construction of stupas, monasteries, and educational institutions, creating centers for Buddhist learning and practice. Among the most famous of these constructions was the Great Stupa at Sanchi, which became a major pilgrimage site. Ashoka also organized the Third Buddhist Council around 250 BCE, aimed at resolving doctrinal disputes and consolidating the teachings. This council played a crucial role in preserving the Pali Canon, a collection of scriptures central to Theravada Buddhism. Ashoka's influence extended beyond the borders of his empire, as he sent missionaries to various regions to propagate the Buddha's teachings. These missions reached as far as present-day Sri Lanka, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia, laying the groundwork for the spread of Buddhism beyond India. Ashoka's children, Mahinda and Sanghamitra, were instrumental in establishing Buddhism in Sri Lanka, where it became a dominant religious tradition. Following Ashoka's reign, Buddhism continued to thrive and evolve within India, benefiting from the patronage of subsequent rulers and the dedication of monastic communities. The establishment of major universities, such as Nalanda and Vikramashila, further contributed to the growth of Buddhist scholarship and education. These institutions attracted students and scholars from across Asia, fostering the exchange of ideas and the development of diverse Buddhist traditions. During the early centuries of the Common Era, The development of various Buddhist schools and sects reflected the dynamic and evolving nature of the religion. Among these, the Mahayana and Theravada traditions emerged as the two principal branches. Theravada, often referred to as the teaching of the elders, emphasized adherence to the original teachings of the Buddha as preserved in the Pali Canon. This tradition became prominent in Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. Mahayana Buddhism, or the Great Vehicle, introduced new philosophical concepts and practices, including the ideal of the bodhisattva, a being dedicated to attaining enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Mahayana teachings emphasized the potential for all beings to achieve Buddhahood and introduced new scriptures, such as the Lotus Sutra and the Heart Sutra. This tradition gained significant influence in Central and East Asia, leading to the development of distinct cultural and philosophical expressions of Buddhism. The early centuries of Mahayana Buddhism saw the rise of influential philosophers and scholars who shaped the doctrinal and practical landscape of the tradition. Nagarjuna, an important figure in the development of Mahayana thought, founded the Madhyamaka school of philosophy, which emphasized the concept of emptiness, shunyata, as a central tenet. His teachings on the nature of reality and the interdependence of all phenomena had a profound impact on subsequent Buddhist thought. Another significant development during this period was the rise of Vajrayana Buddhism, also known as Tantric Buddhism, or the Diamond Vehicle. Vajrayana incorporated esoteric practices, rituals, and meditation techniques aimed at achieving rapid enlightenment. This tradition became particularly prominent in Tibet, where it was integrated with indigenous religious practices, giving rise to Tibetan Buddhism. The influence of Vajrayana extended to other regions, including Mongolia and parts of China. The Gupta dynasty, which ruled much of northern India from the 4th to the 6th centuries CE, is often regarded as a golden age for Buddhism. During this period, the religion enjoyed significant royal patronage and cultural flourishing. The construction of monumental Buddhist art and architecture, including the Ajanta and Ellora caves, reflected the Gupta rulers' support for the religion. These cave complexes, adorned with intricate sculptures and paintings, served as important centers for monastic life and pilgrimage. Despite the Gupta dynasty's contributions to Buddhism, the religion began to face challenges in the subsequent centuries. The resurgence of Hinduism, with its emphasis on bhakti, devotional practices, and the integration of Buddhist elements, led to a decline in Buddhist influence. Additionally, the invasions of the Huns in the 5th and 6th centuries, and later the arrival of Islamic rulers in the 12th century, further disrupted Buddhist institutions and communities. By the end of the first millennium CE, Buddhism had significantly declined in India, its birthplace. The destruction of major monasteries and universities, such as Nalanda, by invading forces contributed to this decline. However, while Buddhism waned in India, it continued to thrive and evolve in other parts of Asia, thanks to the foundations laid by early missionaries and scholars. The legacy of Buddhism's spread within India is evident in the enduring cultural and historical impact of the religion. The architectural marvels, literary contributions, and philosophical insights of Indian Buddhism have left an indelible mark on the global Buddhist tradition. Today, efforts to revive Buddhism in India, particularly through the Dalit Buddhist movement led by figures like B.R. Ambedkar, highlight the enduring relevance and appeal of the Buddha's teachings in contemporary society. The story of Buddhism's spread in India is a testament to the resilience and adaptability of the religion. From its humble beginnings in the teachings of a single enlightened individual, Buddhism grew into a major spiritual and cultural force, influencing countless lives and shaping the course of history. The journey of Buddhism within India is a profound narrative of transformation, offering timeless lessons on the pursuit of wisdom, compassion, and liberation. Buddhism beyond India. The journey of Buddhism from its Indian roots to becoming a global religion is a fascinating narrative of cultural adaptation, doctrinal evolution, and the tireless efforts of countless missionaries, monks, and lay practitioners. This expansion beyond India began relatively early in the history of Buddhism and can be traced through a series of significant milestones and key figures who played pivotal roles in its dissemination. The initial wave of Buddhist expansion outside India is closely linked with the missionary activities initiated by Emperor Ashoka in the 3rd century BCE. Ashoka's zealous commitment to spreading the Dharma led to the dispatch of missionaries to various regions, including Sri Lanka, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia. His son Mahinda and daughter Sanghamita were instrumental in establishing Buddhism in Sri Lanka. Mahinda's successful conversion of the Sri Lankan king, Devanampiya Tissa, and the subsequent establishment of the Mahavihara monastery in Anuradhapura marked the beginning of a deep and enduring Buddhist tradition in Sri Lanka. Sanghamita's contribution, notably the bringing of a sapling of the sacred Bodhi tree, further solidified the religious and cultural ties between India and Sri Lanka. The spread of Buddhism to Southeast Asia followed a complex and multifaceted trajectory, influenced by trade, political alliances, and cultural exchange. By the early centuries of the Common Era, merchants and monks traveling along trade routes played a crucial role in introducing Buddhism to regions such as Burma, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos. The Mon people of Burma were among the early adopters, establishing Theravada Buddhism as a significant religious force. The establishment of powerful kingdoms, such as the pagan empire in Burma, which embraced and patronized Buddhism, further facilitated its spread and institutionalization. In Thailand, Buddhism likely arrived through multiple channels, including trade and direct missionary efforts from both India and Sri Lanka. The Sukhothai and later the Ayutthaya kingdoms were instrumental in adopting and promoting Theravada Buddhism, leading to the development of a distinct Thai Buddhist tradition. Similarly, Cambodia's adoption of Buddhism was influenced by interactions with Indian culture, as evidenced by the construction of the magnificent temple complex of Angkor Wat, originally dedicated to Hindu deities, but later serving as a center for Buddhist worship. The journey of Buddhism into Central Asia and beyond was marked by significant encounters with various cultures and religious traditions. The Silk Road, the ancient network of trade routes connecting the East and West, played a pivotal role in the transmission of Buddhist ideas, art, and practices. Buddhist missionaries, such as the legendary monk Kumarajva, traveled along these routes, translating Buddhist texts into local languages and establishing monasteries and centers of learning. Central Asian regions, such as Bactria and Sogdia, became vibrant hubs of Buddhist activity, contributing to the cross-cultural exchange and the flourishing of Buddhist art and iconography. One of the most remarkable chapters in the spread of Buddhism is its introduction to China. Buddhism is believed to have entered China during the Han Dynasty, around the 1st century CE. Initial contacts were likely facilitated by traders and missionaries from Central Asia. However, it was during the later Han and subsequent periods that Buddhism began to gain significant traction. The translation of Buddhist scriptures into Chinese, notably by scholars such as An Shigao and Lokaksema, played a crucial role in making the teachings accessible to a Chinese audience. The establishment of the White Horse Temple in Luoyang, considered the first Buddhist temple in China, marked a significant milestone in the religion's integration into Chinese society. Buddhism's assimilation into Chinese culture was a complex process, marked by periods of adaptation, syncretism, and occasional resistance. The religion had to contend with the entrenched Confucian and Taoist traditions, but it gradually found a receptive audience among the Chinese people. The development of Chinese Buddhist schools, such as Chan, Zen Buddhism, Pure Land Buddhism, and Tiantai, reflected the unique synthesis of Indian Buddhist doctrines with Chinese philosophical and cultural elements. The Tang Dynasty, 618–907 CE, is often regarded as the golden age of Chinese Buddhism, characterized by the flourishing of Buddhist art, literature, and monastic institutions. From China, Buddhism made its way to Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, each of which developed distinct Buddhist traditions while maintaining core elements of the Dharma. In Korea, Buddhism was introduced during the Three Kingdoms period, 57 BCE, 668 CE, and it played a significant role in unifying the nation and shaping its cultural and religious landscape. The establishment of the Jogye order and the Seon, Zen tradition, reflected the enduring influence of Buddhism in Korean society. In Japan, Buddhism was officially introduced in the mid-6th century CE during the Asuka period. The initial reception was mixed, with some factions of the Japanese court opposing the new religion. However, the support of influential leaders such as Prince Shotoku, who became a fervent patron of Buddhism, helped establish it as a significant spiritual force. Japanese Buddhism evolved into various schools, including Zen, Nichiren, and Pure Land, each contributing to the rich tapestry of Japanese religious life. The construction of iconic temples, such as Todaiji and the Great Buddha of Nara, symbolized the deep-rooted presence of Buddhism in Japan. Vietnam's Buddhist heritage is similarly rich and multifaceted, shaped by its interactions with both Chinese and Indian cultural spheres. Buddhism was introduced to Vietnam as early as the 2nd century CE, and it played a pivotal role in shaping Vietnamese culture, philosophy, and religious practices. The development of Vietnamese Zen, Tien, and the incorporation of Mahayana and Theravada elements reflected the adaptability and resilience of Buddhism in Vietnam. The spread of Buddhism to Tibet in the 7th century CE marked another significant chapter in the religion's history. Tibetan Buddhism, or Vajrayana, is characterized by its unique blend of Indian tantric practices, indigenous Tibetan Bon traditions, and Mahayana philosophy. The establishment of the Sami monastery, under the patronage of King Trisong Detsen and the guidance of Indian scholars such as Padmasambhava and Shantarakshita, laid the foundation for Tibetan Buddhism. The creation of the Tibetan Buddhist canon, consisting of the Kangyur and Tengyur, played a crucial role in preserving and transmitting Buddhist teachings. The influence of figures such as Atisha and the establishment of the great monastic universities of Lhasa further solidified the intellectual and spiritual foundations of Tibetan Buddhism. The spread of Buddhism to Mongolia and its integration into the cultural fabric of Mongolian society is another noteworthy aspect of the religion's journey. In the 16th century, the Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism gained prominence in Mongolia, largely due to the efforts of the third Dalai Lama, Sonam Gyatso. The establishment of monastic institutions and the creation of a written script for the Mongolian language facilitated the transmission of Buddhist teachings. The legacy of Mongolian Buddhism is evident in the continued reverence for figures such as Zanabazar, the first Jebtsundamba Hutuktu, who was instrumental in promoting Buddhist art and scholarship. Buddhism's journey beyond Asia into the Western world is a more recent development, primarily taking place in the 19th and 20th centuries. The initial encounters were largely academic and intellectual, with Western scholars translating and studying Buddhist texts. The Theosophical Society, founded by Helena Blavatsky and Henry Steele Olcott in the late 19th century, played a significant role in introducing Buddhism to Western audiences. The Society's engagement with Buddhist leaders in Sri Lanka and its efforts to revive and promote Buddhism on the island had a lasting impact on the global perception of the religion. The immigration of Asian Buddhists to Western countries in the 20th century and the establishment of Buddhist communities and temples in Europe and North America marked a new phase in the global spread of Buddhism. Figures such as D.T. Suzuki, who introduced Zen Buddhism to the West, and Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who established the Shambhala tradition, were instrumental in making Buddhism accessible to Western practitioners. The emergence of Western-born Buddhist teachers and the integration of Buddhist practices, such as mindfulness meditation, into mainstream culture, further demonstrated the adaptability and universal appeal of Buddhism. The establishment of organizations such as the Buddhist Society in the United Kingdom and the American Buddhist Congress facilitated the exchange of ideas and the growth of Buddhist communities in the West. The Dalai Lama's frequent visits and teachings in Western countries, along with the publication of numerous books on Buddhism, contributed to the increasing interest and practice of Buddhism among Westerners. The integration of Buddhist principles into fields such as psychology, healthcare, and education highlighted the relevance and applicability of Buddhist teachings in contemporary society. Today, Buddhism is a truly global religion, with a diverse and vibrant presence in virtually every corner of the world. The adaptability of Buddhist teachings to different cultural contexts and the universal appeal of its message of compassion, wisdom, and liberation have enabled it to flourish in various forms and expressions. The continued efforts of Buddhist practitioners, teachers, and scholars to preserve, interpret, and propagate the Dharma ensure that the legacy of the Buddha's teachings will endure for generations to come. Modern Buddhism and its global presence. In the contemporary world, Buddhism has experienced a remarkable resurgence and transformation, adapting to the complexities and challenges of modern life while retaining its core principles. The spread of Buddhism to the West and the revival of interest in traditional Buddhist countries have contributed to a vibrant and diverse global Buddhist community. This section explores the evolution of modern Buddhism, highlighting significant movements, influential figures, and the ongoing dialogue between tradition and modernity. The modern era of Buddhism began in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, marked by a series of revival movements in traditional Buddhist countries. In Sri Lanka, for example, the Buddhist revival was significantly influenced by the efforts of Colonel Henry Steele Olcott and the Theosophical Society, which worked to rejuvenate Buddhist education and practice. The establishment of Buddhist schools and the promotion of Buddhist identity in response to colonial rule played a crucial role in preserving and revitalizing the tradition. Similarly, in Japan, the Meiji Restoration, 1868, led to significant changes in the religious landscape. The government's policy of separating Shinto and Buddhism and the subsequent persecution of Buddhist institutions prompted a reformation within Japanese Buddhism. New movements emerged, such as the modernization efforts of the Jodo Shinshu and Nichiren schools, which sought to make Buddhism more accessible to the lay population and relevant to contemporary issues. Figures like D.T. Suzuki played a pivotal role in interpreting and promoting Zen Buddhism, both in Japan and abroad. China's experience with Buddhism in the modern era was shaped by political upheavals and social transformations. The fall of the Qing dynasty and the establishment of the Republic of China led to a period of introspection and reform within Chinese Buddhism. The Buddhist monk Taishu advocated for a modernist approach, emphasizing humanistic Buddhism and social engagement. Despite the challenges posed by the Cultural Revolution, which saw the destruction of many Buddhist temples and the persecution of monks, Buddhism in China has seen a resurgence in recent decades, with the rebuilding of temples and the revival of monastic communities. The spread of Buddhism to the West is a significant aspect of its modern evolution. Western interest in Buddhism can be traced back to the 19th century, with the translation of Buddhist texts and the writings of early Western scholars. The establishment of the first Buddhist societies in Europe and North America provided a foundation for the growth of Buddhist practice in the West. The immigration of Asian Buddhists, particularly after World War II, brought diverse traditions and practices, enriching the Western Buddhist landscape. The 1960s and 1970s saw a burgeoning interest in Buddhism among Western intellectuals and countercultural movements. The Beat Generation, with figures like Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg, embraced Zen Buddhism, finding in it an alternative to the materialism and conformity of mainstream society. The publication of works by D.T. Suzuki and the teachings of Zen masters such as Shunryu Suzuki and Thich Nhat Hanh further popularized Zen practice in the West. The establishment of meditation centers and monasteries by Tibetan Buddhist teachers who fled their homeland following the Chinese invasion of Tibet in 1950 significantly contributed to the spread of Tibetan Buddhism in the West. Figures such as the Dalai Lama, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and Lama Yeshe played crucial roles in adapting Tibetan teachings for a Western audience, fostering a deep appreciation for the richness and depth of the Vajrayana tradition. In addition to Zen and Tibetan Buddhism, other forms of Buddhism have also found a receptive audience in the West. Theravada Buddhism, with its emphasis on mindfulness and meditation, has been particularly influential in the development of secular mindfulness practices. The Insight meditation movement, led by teachers such as Jack Kornfield, Joseph Goldstein, and Sharon Salzberg, has made Vipassana meditation accessible to a broad audience, integrating Buddhist principles with contemporary psychological insights. The dialogue between Buddhism and science, particularly in the fields of psychology and neuroscience, has been a significant aspect of modern Buddhism. The Dalai Lama's ongoing engagement with scientists through the Mind and Life Institute has facilitated a fruitful exchange of ideas, exploring the intersections between Buddhist contemplative practices and scientific understandings of the mind. This dialogue has led to the integration of mindfulness-based interventions in clinical settings, demonstrating the practical benefits of Buddhist practices in promoting mental health and well-being. The rise of secular Buddhism and the mindfulness movement has further expanded the reach of Buddhist teachings. Pioneers like John Kabat-Zinn, who developed mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, have adapted Buddhist mindfulness practices for secular contexts, making them accessible to people of diverse backgrounds and beliefs. The widespread popularity of mindfulness in education, healthcare, and corporate settings reflects the growing recognition of its effectiveness in enhancing focus, reducing stress, and improving overall quality of life. In traditional Buddhist countries, modernity has brought both challenges and opportunities. In Thailand, for example, the Sangha has had to navigate the complexities of a rapidly changing society, addressing issues such as materialism, political conflict, and social inequality. Prominent monks like Ajahn Chah and his disciples, including Ajahn Sumedho, have contributed to a resurgence of interest in monastic practice and meditation, attracting both Thai and international followers. In Myanmar, the Saffron Revolution of 2007 highlighted the role of monks in advocating for social justice and political change. The movement, named after the color of monks' robes, saw thousands of monks and laypeople protesting against the military regime, emphasizing the moral and ethical dimensions of Buddhism in addressing contemporary issues. Despite facing repression, the Buddhist community in Myanmar continues to play a vital role in the country's ongoing struggle for democracy and human rights. In the global context, Buddhist organizations and leaders have increasingly focused on social and environmental issues, reflecting the principles of engaged Buddhism. Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese Zen master, has been a leading advocate of engaged Buddhism, promoting peace, reconciliation, and environmental sustainability. His community, Plum Village in France, serves as a model for integrating mindfulness practice with social and ecological activism. The involvement of Buddhist leaders in addressing global challenges is also evident in the work of the Dalai Lama, who has consistently emphasized the importance of compassion, ethical living, and interfaith dialogue. His advocacy for the rights of the Tibetan people and his efforts to promote global peace and harmony have earned him international recognition and respect. The digital age has further transformed the landscape of modern Buddhism. The availability of online resources, virtual meditation sessions, and digital communities has made Buddhist teachings more accessible than ever before. Social media platforms and websites dedicated to Buddhist teachings and practice have created new avenues for learning and connection, enabling practitioners to engage with the Dharma regardless of geographical constraints. The diversity of modern Buddhism is reflected in the wide range of practices and interpretations that coexist within the global Buddhist community. From traditional monastic settings to urban meditation centers, from secular mindfulness programs to socially engaged Buddhist movements, Buddhism continues to adapt and evolve in response to the needs and aspirations of contemporary practitioners. This rich tapestry of modern Buddhism is a testament to the enduring relevance and adaptability of the Buddha's teachings. As Buddhism continues to grow and evolve, it faces both opportunities and challenges. The global spread of Buddhism offers the potential for greater cross-cultural understanding and collaboration, fostering a sense of global community rooted in shared values of compassion, wisdom, and ethical living. At the same time, the commercialization of mindfulness and the dilution of core teachings pose significant challenges, requiring ongoing efforts to maintain the integrity and depth of the Buddhist tradition. The future of Buddhism will likely be shaped by the continued interplay between tradition and innovation, as practitioners seek to preserve the timeless wisdom of the Dharma while responding creatively to the complexities of modern life. The ongoing dialogue between Buddhism and other religious and philosophical traditions, as well as the integration of Buddhist principles with scientific and technological advancements, will play a crucial role in shaping the trajectory of Buddhism in the 21st century and beyond. In conclusion, modern Buddhism is a dynamic and multifaceted phenomenon, reflecting the rich diversity and enduring appeal of the Buddha's teachings. From its ancient roots in India to its global presence today, Buddhism has demonstrated a remarkable capacity for adaptation and renewal. The ongoing efforts of practitioners, teachers, and scholars to preserve and propagate the Dharma ensure that the transformative potential of Buddhism will continue to inspire and guide individuals and communities around the world for generations to come.